Black Ops Chapter 5. Saturday morning arrived and Rita woke up early to get ready for work, and she was rife with anticipation. "Your first day at work," Shelley welcomed her downstairs excitedly. "I made you breakfast." Shelley brought a plate to the table with pancakes, eggs and sausage. "I put extra butter on your pancakes just like you like them." "Wow," Rita looked at the plate. "This is awesome. Thanks. I'm so excited about your first day at work." Shelley sat down at the table with Rita. "I love the uniform." She looked at the young lady sitting across from her, not wanting to be a pest, but knowing this was a landmark in Rita's life. "Please don't get mad at me, but I want to come later and take a few pictures." Rita sighed and looked up at Aunt Rita. She knew if she protested enough Aunt Shelley wouldn't come, but Rita knew she loved this kind of stuff. "Promise you won't make too big a deal out of it?" "I promise." Shelley was relieved she didn't mind and stood up to pour Rita a glass of juice. "Uncle John is working today, so he will come check on you later. He might eat lunch with you." "I thought he was on night shift now." Rita looked up at her as she took a bite. "No, he starts on Wednesday." "I'm excited and kind of nervous." Rita grimaced a bit as she chewed on a pancake. "I know." Shelley smiled and nodded as she played with the salt shaker. "I remember my first job, and honestly, you feel the same way on the first day of every job." The ladies sat silently for a while, and Rita's thoughts went to Patty and the softball team. "We went and talked to Patty's mom." "That's the one the mean girls were after?" "Yes, ma'am." Rita nodded and finished with her breakfast. She stood up and brought the plate to the sink. "What did she say?" Shelley watched as Rita rinsed the plate and put it in the dishwasher. "She didn't say anything either way, but we gave her coach's information and our phone numbers." Rita leaned on the breakfast bar and sipped her orange juice. "So, she might call?" "Yes, ma'am." Rita finished with her glass and did the same thing with it that she had done with the plate. "I wanted to let you know." "I'm glad y'all did that." Shelley stood up, still in her pajamas and bathrobe, and walked over to the bar. That girl didn't know what they had in store for her. After they did what they did to Micah, it just doesn't seem right to leave Patty to their mercy. Rita nodded, both ladies understanding the totality of the circumstances. "We've been eating lunch with her for the past few days, and she seems like she's real nice. I'll be expecting the call." Shelley sat on one of the stools by the bar and looked over at Rita. "You better get going." Shelley smiled, nervous for Rita. Rita looked up and smiled nervously. "Wish me luck." Rita was soon on her bike and on the way to the bowling alley. She immediately noticed the van and how they tried to stay just in sight of her. After her discussion with Uncle John in the park, she wondered if they were the only ones following her. She took the busiest route, knowing the van would get tangled up in traffic somewhere along the way. She pulled into the bowling alley and locked her bike up at the rack out front. She walked into the bowling alley, turned and walked toward the counter. "Rita!" Jason yelled from across the alley and waved to her. "Jay!" She yelled back and giggled a little. "Hey, yeah, Rita." Mr. Cousin stepped out of the front office as she approached. "Hi, Mr. Cousin." Rita smiled and stood across the counter from him as Jason approached. "I have a shirt for you." He handed her a red polo shirt with the bowling alley emblem embroidered on it. "You can go change in the bathroom." "Yes, sir." She took the shirt and trotted over to the bathroom. She changed and Mr. Cousins gave her the ins and outs of the counter. "I want you to rotate through every area over the next few weeks, so if needed you can sub." Mr. Cousins turned to her as they walked through the lanes. "That sounds great." Rita turned to see Jason walking up. "And Jay is going to be the one training you." Mr. Cousins smiled and looked at the two. "All right, boss." Rita gave Jason a light punch on the arm. "We are going to start on the lanes." Jason motioned for her to follow, and the two walked over to the machine running up and down the lanes. As the day progressed, Jason showed her how to operate the machine that oils the lanes, how to operate the computer and turn on the lanes, and how to check everyone out. He emphasized that she needed to collect the money before the patrons would bowl. Uncle John came by at about 3 that afternoon and they ate lunch together. She made it through the day and it was a full day. The lanes shut down at 10 and she and Jason spent the next hour cleaning up. "What a day!" Rita looked over at Jason while they sat at a table to enjoy a Coke. "How did you like it?" Jason looked over at her with a big grin. "It was tough, but I love it." She sipped her drink and glanced up at him. Jason smiled. Good. I can't wait until summer when I can work more, she mentioned, and he smiled again. He has had a little crush on her for a while now, but he could tell she was still in friend mode. The two chatted for a bit and she knew she had to be back at work for 11 the next day. She went outside and unlocked her bike. She looked up and saw the van had now moved closer to the bowling alley. She debated what to do and knew she should call Uncle John and Aunt Shelley, but she didn't want to be banned from riding her bike. She decided to move between the buildings all the way home. The alleys would be safer to travel. She did that and made it home just fine. She walked in to find Uncle John sitting at the table waiting on her. So how was the first day? He smiled as he sipped a glass of warm milk. She knew he was waiting up to make sure she got home safe. I love it. She fell into a chair at the table and looked up at him. That's good. He leaned back in his chair, wanting to make sure she wasn't being followed. No extra company? They kept their distance. Rita looked down at the table, hoping he wouldn't keep her from the bike. John nodded and wondered if he shouldn't take the bike away, but decided against it. You let me know if it gets any worse. Rita nodded. I have to be back tomorrow at 11. She was relieved he didn't pull rank on her. So, I'm going to go to 9 o'clock Massachusetts. That sounds good. He nodded, hoping he made the right choice. You better get some sleep. Yes, sir. She stood up and turned back to him. Good night. Good night, honey. He turned to her and gave a sleepy smile. She ran upstairs to clean up and get some rest. A softball game rolled around soon enough and the parents and some students were there cheering them on. Patty's mom was sitting in the crowd encouraging the girls, and watched as her daughter enjoyed her time with the team. She collected the bats and helmets, making sure the next batter had exactly what she needed. She would cheer them on and high-five them no matter how well they did at bat. Hi, a lady walked up the bleachers and soon sat down next to her. I'm Tracy, Micah's mom. Hello, Patty's mom held out her hand to shake. I'm Marie. Tracy divided her attention between the game and the conversation. The girls were so excited that you let Patty join them. I'm happy that I did too. Marie looked over at Patty and smiled. Patty is having so much fun. She's really enjoyed the medical aspect of what she does. Marie turned to Tracy. Yeah, all the managers are trained. It's part of their responsibilities. Each year it gets more intense. Tracy informed her. They told me the mean girls were about to go after Patty? Marie was inquisitive. Yeah, Micah informed me about that. Tracy grimaced and turned to look over at Marie. It's scary. Rita explained to me they went after Micah. Marie glanced over at the game for a moment, and then turned back to Tracy waiting for the response. Then Rita was being modest. Tracy chuckled and shook her head. The queen mean girl went after Micah with a knife because she wanted Micah's spot at the lunch table. Rita disarmed her and ended her reign. The other girls on the team saw what was happening and came over to keep the other mean girls away, but the girl that pulled the knife was kicked out of school and is going to a boarding school somewhere in Georgia. Really? Marie, surprised by all of this, turned fully to Tracy. Tracy nodded. Micah said the mean girl had the knife to her throat. Rita just came out of nowhere and grabbed the blade. I think Rita still has a scar on her hand. So, the girls really did save Patty from them. Tracy nodded, smiled and shrugged. Yes, they did. The next few weeks were fun at the bowling alley, and she had finally gotten into the groove of everything, which made her enjoy the work more. She even got to sub alone one night in the canteen when the cook didn't show up for work. The van continued following her, but it never came too close. She always took different ways to and from work and figured that was going to keep her safe, for a while anyway. She cleaned the kitchen after a night in the canteen and had everything put away. She went to the cleaning closet and prepared the water to mop the floor. Do you need some help? Jason stood across the counter from her. He was almost finished with his closing time chores and thought he might be able to help with hers. I'm actually just getting ready to mop, so I'm almost done. She looked up at him, nearly finished herself. Hey, Jason smiled and started to step away to put the pizza in the oven. I made a pizza and stuck it in the fridge to cook for tonight when we finished. Awesome. She followed him to the walk-in cooler. He stepped in and went to a rack in the back. Yeah, Jason looked over at her as he pulled it out. My dad has some paperwork to do, so me and him will be here for another couple of hours. You could put it in now and by the time I finish mopping it will be done. That, he smiled, is the plan. She mopped and scrubbed the floor from one end to the other, put out the wet floor signs and the two of them pulled out the pizza. Look at the cheese, Rita gasped at the mountain of melted mozzarella. I know how much you like your cheese, Jason smiled. They cut it up and put it on plates. Jason ran a couple of slices to his dad while Rita brought theirs to the table along with a couple of Cokes. Man, this is awesome, Rita said as Jason walked up. I thought it would be fun, he revealed as he sat down. We can't do it all the time but Dad doesn't mind every now and then. Rita took a bite. Man, that's a good pizza, Rita remarked. Jason nodded. I need to market this. They both laughed and soon headed to the kitchen to clean up the dishes they dirtied with the pizza. Rita put the kitchen apron in the dirty bin and the two headed to the counter to finish up there. Rita said something that made Jason laugh and when she looked up at him the butterflies in her stomach started. She cringed to herself and it must have shown on her face. Is everything all right? Jason asked her. Yeah, I just remembered something I forgot to do at home, she lied. All right, he said and they finished up. I'll see you tomorrow, he waved as she rode off on her bike. She waved and headed home. Aunt Shelley was waiting for her when she got home. How was work? She asked as they went and sat at the breakfast bar. Rita dropped her head on the counter. What is it, honey? Shelley questioned urgently. Is everything all right? Rita picked up her head and nodded. Then what is it? I have a crush on Jason, Rita sighed and dropped her head again. Oh, Shelley said apprehensively, I see what you mean. What do I do? Rita asked in desperation as she looked up at Aunt Shelley. I'm terrible at stuff like this, Shelley admitted. I can't quit work, Jason would be so disappointed, Rita said as Aunt Shelley poured them some hot water for hot chocolate. Why did this happen now? I mean right before graduation and all, Rita gripped. Now everything is going to be all weird. She moaned as Aunt Shelley handed her a cup of hot chocolate. Just then Uncle John walked in for lunch. He walked to the fridge and grabbed the juice and turned to grab a glass. He soon became concerned by the two's silence. What's wrong? He asked very slowly and deliberately and stopped what he was doing. Should I slowly back out and return to patrol, or is it safe to stay? Shelley sighed and looked over at John as if begging for help. It's safe. I have a crush on Jason, Rita blurted out and covered her face. Oh, Uncle John now understood the tension in the room. What do I do? I can talk to his dad if John started to say. No, both of the ladies said at the same time. Okay, I won't, he commented, looked at them like they were crazy, and returned to pouring his drink. I don't know what you can do, Aunt Shelley told her. I can tell you what I used to do. What's that? Rita looked at her apprehensively. I would pretend nothing had changed, Shelley cringed. How did that work out for you? Rita asked tentatively. I married him, Shelley smiled and Rita looked over at Uncle John who had a big grin. Rita giggled. That sounds promising. Honey, I don't know what to tell you, Shelley said. I know it's a tough spot, Rita said. Shelley debated on whether or not to tell Rita something, and decided it was for the best. I don't want to get you down, but, honey, don't be too disappointed if he doesn't feel the same way. I know, Rita admitted. I keep thinking that. The three visited for a little while, and Rita cleaned up and went to bed. The next day at work was weird and she hoped it didn't show. They visited for a little while and Rita got on the road to head home. Her mind was so lost in thought, she had forgotten about her stalkers. She turned the corner by one of the grocery stores and was cut off by the van. Rita immediately went into overdrive and started pedaling away quickly. They pursued, quickly catching up. She darted down an alley where the van couldn't follow. One of the men jumped out and began running after her while the rest took off. She turned down a side alley and continued toward the road. She came out on the street just behind them. She could hear as they slammed on the brakes and put it in reverse. She came to a hill and was slowing down on her bike. She jumped off and started running between vacant houses. She was looking behind her to see if anyone was following when someone grabbed her from behind and covered her mouth. He pulled her into a recently vacated house. She was terrified now. Her heart raced as the man looked out the window. He saw one of the women pursuing her walk by. He drew a gun as he pulled her with him away from the view, still covering her mouth. She heard the low garble of a voice in an earpiece. "We're in the vacant house on College Street." His hushed tones made it more menacing somehow. 200 block about Midway, real estate sign at the street. Rita heard more garbling. "I count 5 including the van, 3 on foot." The man turned to watch as the lady passed on the other side. She walked by and continued into the other yard. The man holding her watched as the group continued through the backyards. "They moved on," he whispered. He took his hand off of Rita's mouth and pulled her into an interior room. "Sit on the floor here. If you leave this house, they will kill you." He walked back to the room they had been in. She heard the door quickly open and then quietly close and lock. She could hear 2 men approaching from what it sounded like on the hardwood floors. She looked up to see Michaels. This frightened her more. The 2 men turned off their mics and looked at her as they holstered their weapons. She was shaking now that the adrenaline had kicked in. "Did you know they were following you?" Michaels questioned her in a whisper. Rita nodded as she looked up at the 2 men. Michaels squatted down in front of her. "Then you need to keep your head on," he whispered gruffly to her. "What were you thinking tonight?" Rita didn't answer. "Are you going to answer me?" "I have a crush on Jason," she tentatively answered. Michaels and Austin both sighed and shook their heads. "You're smarter than that." Michaels angrily stood back up. "They've cleared out of here by now," Austin commented to Michaels. "My uncle is working tonight," Rita informed the 2. "Call him," Michaels huffed. "He needs to know what's going on anyway." Rita got him on the phone and told him where she was. He was on his way. "We need to talk," Michaels notified her. John was soon there and was met by Rita at the road as he exited his unit. "We need to go to the pit," Rita revealed calmly as she climbed into the passenger side of the police car. John climbed back into the unit and the 2 took off. "You all right?" John asked her. "I got the crap scared out of me, but I'm all right," she sighed. They arrived at the pit, a little spot on the edge of town the high school kids like to hang out at, but was vacant that night. John and Rita got out of the police car and waited for the other 2. Austin and Michaels arrived and Michaels practically jumped out before the car stopped. "They almost caught her tonight." Michaels barked at John, obviously upset. Austin got ahead of her and pulled her into the vacant house. John nodded and looked at Rita. "We need to keep tighter reins on her," Michaels insisted. "Consider it done," John advised them. "You did what you should have done, in spite of the major screw-up, but you need to keep your head in the game," Michaels directed Rita and then turned to John. "Does your wife know?" John shook his head. "How are you going to handle that?" Michaels questioned. "Her bike was stolen, and I am going to give her a ride home," John responded. Michaels informed her he would go to school the next day under the premise of the incident at school. He needed to talk to her. "We're going to talk to you tomorrow," Michaels explained to Rita and turned to John. "We probably won't see them for a few days," Michaels stated to John. "They know you are local law enforcement by now, but when we see them again, they will be here to get her." Michaels turned back to Rita. "And they will get you one way or another." They all left the pit and headed in their own directions. "You have to stay close to home," Uncle John articulated to her as they drove home. Rita nodded as Uncle John pulled into the driveway. She let Aunt Shelley know that her bike was stolen. They promised they would go get her a new one in the morning. She cleaned up, did her homework and went to bed. She woke up and still couldn't believe what had happened the night before. She texted Jay, and he was going to pass by her house on the way so they could walk to school together.